Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Are you frustrated and stressed out with your professional and personal life? The Charge Podcast will help you get recharged. Yes, we are already in August of 2020. Time for schools to be opening up and students heading back to the classroom. Now this year, that may be not the case depending on where you're listening to this podcast. We decided this month we will talk about topics on education to share with you some experts on how they're handling educating students for today, tomorrow, and beyond. The goal of the Charge Podcast is for you to realize you can only control what you can control. Remember, our influence in life comes from the things we can control. You made a great choice in listening to this podcast. I think this quote sums it up best by Stephen R. Covey. I'm not a product of my circumstances. I am a product of my decisions. Remember, the podcast is named Charged after my mantra, create habits around real goals every day. Let's get recharged in this podcast to influence a positive culture in our life each day. Are you ready? Chargers, I know you're always looking for opportunities to learn, grow, and develop. That's why you listen to the Charge Podcast. Well, most leaders struggle with communicating the goals of your business to get results. At the Leadership Navigator Academy, we've created a learning and development program that helps leaders hold themselves and their team accountable. When your leaders change behaviors, you see results in increased performance and a more engaged team, which increases profits. If you would like to learn more about the Leadership Navigator Academy, go to thechargepodcast.com and click on the L&A link to get all the information.
Welcome back, Chargers. We're glad to have you back again today with another great podcast guest. I love bringing you different viewpoints. And because it's the month of August, I love talking about education because education is our foundation for everything. So we can always pick up different tips. And today I was fortunate to get Dr. Larry Linthacum. He's the superintendent of Jefferson City Public Schools. And Dr. Linthacum has been in education for 26 years. 12 of those as a superintendent, and the last 5 in the Jefferson City Public School District. This brings his education career full circle in that he began his business as a business teacher and coach at Jefferson City High School. Dr. Linthacum received his BS from the University of Missouri-Columbia, where he was a 4-year letterman on the football team. His master's degree and specialist degree in superintendency are from Northwest Missouri State University. Dr. Linthacum received his Doctorate of Education from the University of Missouri-Columbia in 2016. He has been married to his wife, Angie, for 21 years, and they have 4 children, Micah, Sarah, Hannah, and Thomas. Dr. Linthacum, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Thank you, Gary. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you on, but before we get into talking about education, I ask every guest this question, so it's no surprise, but I have a mantra called CHARGE, create habits around real goals every day. What habit or habits do you think has led to success in your life, Larry?
Well, I've been very blessed, and not that I have them all instilled in me yet as habits, but I think just honestly, optimism. The old saying, if it's to be, it's up to me, and perseverance. The old saying of life's not about what happens to us, but how we react to the situation that we encounter. And I remember as a kid, my mother saying, the finest steel goes through the hottest fire. Maybe another one of just an improvement mindset of challenging the status quo. So those are 3 things that I try. Again, I don't claim to be an expert on them, but those are 3 habits that I try to work toward every day.
Well, and I think that's a big one because education is going through a lot of changes. So we'll kind of play on that optimism now. we have to be optimistic. You know, you hear people all the time think, oh, the generation that's growing up now, they've got all these, they're not going to be able to communicate because they're always in their phones and all the problems they have. Well, as I did some research on a book I wrote, 21 Ways to Attract and Retain Millennials, is the thing I found out about it is we always trade from one generation to the next generation. And it's what they see there. And you see that in education all the time. But I think big picture, if you would share with us what you think some education challenges are as we go forward and as we're looking at big picture, not just Jefferson City, but just education in general. What do you think some of those challenges that are upon us?
Well, I think a big challenge is just the changing a mindset that we've heard a lot of folks say they just wanted to get things back to normal. And I think we all know that the new normal or the next normal, it's not going to be the same. And I think we all recognize that. And I think we all recognize the opportunities that we have through the closures that not only in Missouri, but across the nation that schools faced of what that looks like, that there are other opportunities to connect with kids. At the end of the day, in my opinion, we're to make a difference in our kids' lives and help them to find their passion and stir with them the belief that they can do anything and that they can go be productive members of the society. So the traditional way of looking face to face, or as you and I today, looking here through Zoom, that's not something that we've really been accustomed to. But there's other ways at the end of the day how we connect with our families to educate them and stir something within them. So I think it's requiring us to think outside the box. We were forced to do that with the closure on March 18th through the end of the school year, and then summer school as well. And so I think with that, our challenges, but it's opportunities as well, that I think if it does go back to the new or the next normal, that we can hopefully learn some things that worked, some things that didn't work so well, and how can we carry that forward to better connect with our families.
So if you're listening right now, because I have a lot of people and some of them are business people and they're saying, well, I don't know if this fits me. I'll tell you, keep listening, because what Larry just shared with us is education and business experienced some of the similar things through COVID, because we found out we can do more communication through Zoom and other tools and technology that's there, where before we may have flown somewhere to get there to have that meeting, where we may be able to have that same productivity that's there. Well, that's an interesting part. Then I take it to education, Larry, and just think what can come to the students now. They're doing a history lesson, and let's say it's, there's not many of them, that there's still a few of those World War II vets around, and those people that you want to introduce, they may not be able to come to you, but just think you could bring that live into the classroom now, and it just really changed the educational component.
Well, and it really does. And you take that to a step further of, virtual learning of what that means. Is it going and visiting an artifact that it could be done virtually? Granted, it's not quite the same, but just those opportunities that we have to consider. How can we better connect with kids and provide them the skills, the critical thinking skills of through the different scenarios, so we can challenge our students to think through scenarios, but then also utilize those folks that have been there, done that, or to firsthand, let's say, whether it's in a particular situation. So a lot of opportunities, and I think at the end of the day, we just have to have a mindset of, if it's to be, it's up to me, it's up to us, and you have to, refine, refocus, adjust accordingly, and let's go forward, and let's not make excuses to make it happen.
Yeah, and that's the key, is learn from that time. We take from what we've learned in history over this last 6 months, and now we can adjust and really set ourselves up. Hopefully we're in person this fall and everything's working fine, but if not, we're better in tune of how we can move forward with that. Larry, I always believe it's really important, and I live in the Jefferson City area, and we've got great families, and there's great families all across the country and the world that, may be listening to this podcast. But I think sometimes parents forget that they are the number one educator of their child and how important that is. And I'm just curious, from an educator standpoint, is How important do you think that is? And I know the challenge, some people don't have those parents to be able, that role model, but they can use a mentor or someone else in that. In the educational role, how important is that to have parents really understand that they're part of this solution in education?
Well, they really are. And I think that's a learning point that we had throughout the closure with the engagement with our families, our teachers that maybe didn't reach out. I mean, that was something we wanted. We have 9,000 students in our school district, and I ask all of our teachers, we have 791 teachers, to reach out to every single child and connect with those families. And realizing, one, that the element that it does start at home, and we can all say that, and it sounds great, but at the end of the day, it truly does. If we can work, we talk about being stronger together, but being more intentional about that. So your research would say there's a great effect size with our families at home, and when they work better with our schools, and instead of working against each other, how we can work stronger together. So there are opportunities there, and I think that we realized of success stories. We also realized that it doesn't always work so well. We realize that folks do not have the infrastructure, the ability to connect with them online at homes, and that's something that a challenge that we face as well, of how we can do that. So it can happen without technology, but technology is going to be a part moving forward. I think we all recognize. So there are opportunities there, and we need, as a school system, we need to do a better job. That it's not like, well, it'd be great if we could partner with them to the next level of. It is essential that we have to work with our families going forward.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And it becomes it's a critical component. You were putting your hands together. It's like a link, it's part of the chain that if one of those links or is not there, it makes it tougher for that individual. So how can we create those links that's there? Another piece that is so important is for the educators. And one thing, you've been in this industry for 26 years, and I'm sure you can tell about quite a few changes you've seen in education over the last 26 years, and it's changing rapidly. And one of the things I think becomes real key is really getting the staff buy-in on that. You talk about stronger together as one of your themes with parents, staff, students. It's everyone has to be involved in the process. And educators have to be, because the educators, I always say, the term teacher is that person that teaches a subject. But an educator is the person that inspires their students on the greater things. And I have my educator, my high school freshman English teacher. I have a scholarship in her name over at Blair Oaks, and she's edited all my books, Larry. Told me this was the last one she was going to do that on, but I've got one book coming out this fall, and she's done that. But she made a difference for me at a time in my life that was so important. And educators do that with their students that they're doing each and every day. My question to you is, number one, I know how important they are, but share that from your point of view, their side of it. And then as educators, as things are changing now with technology, with things in the classroom that is different, how does all that play a role in to really be able to get a great educational system?
Well, those are all great points. I think I'll start with the district-wide leadership standpoint with our teachers, and for them to see that collectively that we are in this together. I'm a believer in transformational leadership, and that is basically where, through teams, and that's from my coaching days when I was teaching, but now I'm still coaching or trying to, that we work with teams to identify the changes that are needed and create that vision to guide that change, and through inspiring them and providing them the resources to make that happen, and then execute that change with our folks to transform, to make a difference, as you touched on. So if we're doing that district-wide and we're creating that, instead of telling our folks, here's what we're doing, but developing that with their input through to get buy-in, that they feel like there's a structure to help them be successful. I think that lays the framework for that to happen. The next step, as you talked about, just with our teachers, that they feel confident that we have a structure to connect with our kids. And at the end of the day, our students, you touched on a little bit of, whether students are changing or not. In my opinion, kids are kids. I think they just have more opportunities, more distractions at times, but also more resources of things that we can take advantage of. And I think we have to be intentional about how we take advantage of those resources of those opportunities versus seeing them as a distraction. Can they be a distraction? Absolutely. It's different than it was 26 years ago or when you and I were in school growing up. So I think the schools that are able to move forward and to be successful are those that can anticipate what's coming and take advantage of those opportunities and creating the why. I'm a believer in that with Simon Sinek of what is the why behind why we do what we do, not just because we tell you to, but to create that why. And our why is that we want to give all of our students hope for a better tomorrow through student success. So if they truly believe that, how we can work through transforming our students to believe that, hey, you can do something, anything you want if you set your mind to it through an educated person through hard work and perseverance. The sky's the limit, but it does take all of those. You have to have the skills, obviously, and you have to have the hard work, but you also have to have the ability to persevere because, as we all know, curveballs will come along the way, and we got to work through those.
And that's the same way, I relate it back to business again for those folks that's sitting there in business say, well, you're talking to education. Isn't there curveballs every time that comes up in your business? People that's been in business, that's those obstacles that come up. We all receive them. And that's where the connection is, where education and business, where as they work together, and that's one thing Dr. Linthacum has done in this Jefferson City School District, came on 5 years ago. And there was a little bit of breakdown in some communication. We were trying to, needed to do some things, but there was a little bit of breakdown in the communication. And one thing that you've really done a great job of, Dr. Linthacum, is about bringing that communication, and the community is a piece of that. The students is a piece of that. The parents is a piece of that. And then, just the voters that they have to vote in a bond issue, and you were able to pass that bond issue. So would you share with us some of your strategies and your beliefs of just how communication is so important, and doesn't matter if it's a business or if it's in a district like Jefferson City High School or Jefferson City School District, I should say now.
Yeah, you're good. Those are all, I'm still learning. I mean, honestly, and it was a team effort, and I've been very blessed trying to surround yourself with folks that we're all rowing in the same direction for a common cause. And, the old saying of just communicating and over communicating, if my wife was listening, she might not say I'm the greatest communicator, but how we work through and how we communicate, and that we're consistent, we're honest. We have transparency of, well, we screwed this up, but here's what we learned from. We're going to try to do better, take responsibility for things. So I think those are all important components when you communicate, whatever it is, whether it's a bond issue, as you touched upon, whether it's, what are we doing with COVID-19? What are we doing to ensure through remote learning how we can get better? And, not always having the answers, but, acknowledging that and realizing that we're still learning, but also providing a voice for folks that they have an opportunity. Communicating is not always just telling, but it's listening. And how can we have empathy and put ourselves in other folks' shoes to try to truly understand? I know how crucial that is, and just try to listen. That we've, coffees with Larry, town hall meetings. I go to buildings and meet with our staff on a regular basis to try to just listen, to truly understand where folks are coming from, to move forward. So don't claim to have it figured out. It's still a work in progress, but we know that it's important for us to be able to make a difference with our students.
Yeah. And it's just a willingness. I think that's one of the big keys for anyone. If they're listening, if they're in their business, when you shut people off, they're not going to give you their feedback. Guess what? Some of the greatest suggestions come from them because they're in the trenches, they're doing it. And when we're willing to listen, my mother used to always tell me, and everybody's heard it, we've given 2 ears for a reason and only one mouth, and we've got to remember that in communication is, are we willing to listen? And sometimes it's tough to hear what people have to tell us, but which makes organizations better as we move forward. Well, have you noticed, I've kind of talked about some educational challenges. We've talked about the parents. We've talked about the educators, but I want to really talk about the students. And you mentioned it a little bit ago. They really haven't changed that much. They may have some more distractions that's there, but does the students really play a vital role? And part of that goal is when they're kind of off track, how can an educator bring them on to be able to get them to see their benefits that they have? But just talk about it, students in general. You've been in this industry for 26 years. What is some of the keys you see from students that, maybe they came in their freshman year, And I know you've got them throughout, but maybe that 8th grade freshman, they fall off a little bit. Maybe they were great through the 7th grade, but then they find that. What are some of those keys you see that really helps a student kind of propel forward?
Well, you're exactly right, and it's at the end of the day, it's our students, that they're our customers, and if we don't listen to them and adjust accordingly to be able to connect with them, then that's on us. That's our own fault. But I've got 4 kids myself, a 19, 17, 15, and 13-year-old, and I'm still learning as a dad. I've been very blessed with our 4 kids, but how we connect with them, it does shift. The distractions that they have, that our society throws the curveballs, when they want to be in their phones. I think we have to be intentional about how they can utilize those resources. I touched on it earlier, but not just saying, well, that's the way kids are these days and they're going to be on their phones all day, then that's on us. And it's a work in progress, honestly, from a standpoint of how we can better connect with them. We have a curriculum that, the state says here are the Missouri learning standards, and then it is up to the local control, I'm sure across the nation, the other states, of how you instill and teach that curriculum. And I think that's up to us. And I'm reading a book right now as far as with bold teaching, and it's basically of old school wisdom with new technology strategies. And it's a book that I've had from 2 or 3 years ago. And if there was ever a time of what does a bold school look like, how we utilize and take advantage of that as we look at education from a standpoint of whether back in the classroom, whether remotely, or a combination of a hybrid model, how we take advantage of those things. So our kids can help, they can teach us a lot. I don't mean just from the days of setting up a VCR. I mean, those days are kind of long past with VCRs, but they could teach us so much if we'll just listen and be willing to listen, but also walk alongside them in those crucial areas, crucial time frames at that middle school age, as they work through those years and the changes that they face, and they're trying to find their, what's their path. I mean, all of our kids want to experience success, and I'm a believer in that our kids are going to do better in math, science, history, and English when they can find something they're passionate about outside of those areas. So one of our goals as a district is to help every student find something besides math, science, history, and English, whether through activities, athletics, co-curricular, extracurricular, you name it, to find that success. And I think it's with that, there are opportunities to then go alongside them. And then as educators, our goal, I think, is to help foster that, facilitate, nurture that, guide, encourage, redirect, you name it, all of those elements that I think we all believe in. So at the end of the day, we're in this together, working with our families and our students. And I think we need to recognize that our students are still students. They're still kids. They still need, an arm around them. But they also need the guidance. And the bottom line, if there's one thing, just a belief. I believe in you. Failure is not an option. I believe in you. If every child has instilled in them that somebody believes in me, they've got a great chance of being successful. So that's a challenge that we have for our folks to try to, that every child, that somebody believes in them, because not every home has that belief at home. And we all know it starts at home with our parents. And sometimes our parents, they could do a better job with that. And so we want to make sure and provide that. If they don't, if they are providing it, that we're working with them alongside, that we're going to help them be successful.
Well, Larry, I'm sure you've seen some of the same articles that I've seen, but that one educator can make that difference in that person's life. Same way as I just had on a earlier podcast, a lady talking about transformations and how from 0 to 10, we learn so much, but sometimes that can be our roadblock, because if they told they weren't good, maybe by a parent or by a grandparent or even an educator, but the same thing comes through with that educator could be that person that changes that direction and says, you do have the capability. And I've read some of those stories where, someone looks back and they realize that educator made that difference because they did just what you said. They made them believe that they can versus they can't. It was the first time they was really told that. So I think that really comes true. Larry, I know you can't give a full name and not looking for that, but you've been in education 26 years. And I think a fun way to end would be, now you have some students that they're married and they've become adults. Share a story from a former student that's reached back out to you, or that you've seen in the community or in one of your communities that you've been involved with, and kind of what they maybe said to you as an educator and what that you meant to them.
Yeah, I appreciate sharing that. I've had a few, the one that sticks out was back in my days of when I was coaching. I was a basketball and football coach. I've been head of both at a Class II school, so it wasn't a huge school system. But I had some students that were challenges, and back in my younger days, that I'm sure I could have done things better to connect with them. But had drawn a line, and I had to make some tough decisions at the time. They seemed huge, but just as far as with whether allowing them to be a part of the team or not. And it was 10 to 15 years after they graduated that they came back. One, they apologized, and they basically said that a lot of those things that I was saying, it finally clicked with them. And so I didn't have it at the time, so it kind of reaffirmed of the things of doing the right thing and let as my mother would say, do the right thing and let the chips fall as they may. And I'm a believer in that. And so that was encouraging to me. Keep doing the right thing, move forward to make a difference in our kids' lives. And they may not realize it at the time. I'm kind of stepped outside of that role now in my administration versus the direct contact with students every day. But I believe in education and the public education, the opportunities that we have. I do believe it's the foundation of our society moving forward. And I think we all recognize there are needs in our society and how education can play an important role with that. So I've been blessed with that and the opportunities that I've had with the student encounter over the years.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think one thing I wanted to remind people of, number one, if you're a parent listening and there's a educator that's influenced your child's life, let them know, especially as we're gearing up. This is going to play in the month of August when education is getting started back up. It will really help them renew what they're doing and why they're doing it, kind of their purpose that they have. And the other is, if you still have an educator that is still alive, reach out to them. I was fortunate, and I think you know the name, Larry, John O'Leary challenged me at a conference I was at his, and he said, go back and who's someone that's influencing your life? And I actually had a 4th grade teacher. She wasn't the easy teacher. She wasn't the most likable teacher, but right. I thought of her because she demanded and wanted you to do your best always. And what I thought of her was, I did an art project, and I'll be honest, it was a Christmas tree art project, and Gary was not very good at art. I kind of rushed through it and got it done. I took it up to her and told her I was done. And she made this comment on me and said, is that something that you want to give your mother? Well, no, it wasn't, because I rushed through it, of course. So I went back, and I still don't think it was very pretty, Larry, but my mom put that out for the next 5 to 10 years because it was a gift from me. And that's the key. And I really thought back of that, because that excellence really helped me in my career. When I look back on things, it really made a difference in my life, and educators do that. So the reason I share that is to tell the people, if you're listening, Chargers, my challenge I give you, go tell an educator the difference they either made in your child's life, or if you've still got an educator alive, reach out to them, find them, and let them know that, because I guarantee you'll get a smile. I was able to do that with that educator. She passed away just a couple years ago, but I was able to do it before that. And she said, Gary, that's really nice. Nice. You really made a difference in my life today by sharing that. And I said, well, you made a difference in my life for a lifetime. And it was just a special moment. So educators have that impact. So thanks for what you do, Dr. Linthacum, and sharing your message and sharing with your educators and all the other educators that we're going to have listen to this, but also for the parents and business people that's out there. Our next future leaders are those students that's in your classrooms right now.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for reaching out to those educators. I think all of us, we need to do a better job of telling those folks that made a difference in our lives, letting them know that. So great reminder for all of us and for me as well.
Chargers, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, but we're not done just yet. We're going to hit Larry with the recharge round 2 already. I challenged him, and he said he was up for that challenge. So let's talk about the first one. We talked a little bit about this, but we talked more about the students. How do you think your mindset affects your daily living?
Well, great point. I think just to honestly, directly of, I realize that I'm a part of something greater than myself, and how I can make that difference every single day, and having that mindset that I'm a believer in synergy, that the sum is greater than its parts. And if we're all rowing in the same direction, and I have a choice to make every day. Am I going to if there's a lemon, am I going to have lemon, or am I going to make lemonade or out of it? And just to go for it and find something we're passionate about, and have that mindset that, don't be scared to fail, and I may mess up, but how can I learn from it and move on going forward? So I think that's an important mindset to have.
Well, I know you were in athletics, and you enjoyed athletics just as much as I have, and now you have some children in it. But what do you do daily, Larry? Because a lot of times people think energy is about exercise, and I think that helps, but also it's about generating energy. What do you do the days that you need to generate that energy to do what you love to do and be able to come to the office and be the superintendent, where, of course, everyone's saying they're following kind of that lead of that leader?
Well, I personally just have to get my mindset right. And if my mind is not right, then it's usually not a great day. But having a mindset, my faith is important to me, and just trying to get my mindset right, my faith, and praying for wisdom of what we're doing, and being a part of the greater task. And I think just that mindset and exercise is important, whether physically or just from a mental standpoint of being able to think things through, and having a mindset of recognizing all the challenges that we have, but also keeping the main thing, and that's the main thing going forward each day. I think gives our mindset an appropriate starting spot for each day.
Excellent. What's the number one connection or relationship that's made the biggest impact on your life?
I would probably say with my family, the important that it plays with me, my wife, my kids, but it started with my parents and just my relationship with them. I'm 52 years old, and I still talk to my mom every day. I call her every day on my way to work, and so I'm close with my parents and family. So that's been an important part of connecting with them on a regular basis, and hopefully I'm carrying that over in my role of my marriage and my kids as well.
Well, thanks for sharing that about your mom, because my mom has passed away, but you made me smile, because it's one of the things, either when I left, and sometimes when she called multiple times during the day when I was real busy, it was tough always to get to her, but I tried to call her on the way home and stuff, and brings back some good memories. So thanks for sharing that. What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
Probably my dad. My dad said, "I believed in you." This is something from before I became a superintendent. I was teaching, and then I got into administration, and my school district had asked if I'd be interested in being their superintendent, and I really didn't think I had any business doing that. And I remember talking to my dad about it, and he's like, "Well, why wouldn't you?" He said, "I believe in you, and I'm sure you can do it." And that meant a lot, and just the reminders of the impact that we can have with our words, and that had a big influence to go for it. And what's the worst case scenario? That if you screw it up or mess it up, well, you learn from it and you keep moving forward, but just to go for it. So that belief that my dad had in me meant a lot to me.
Excellent. How about a book? I know you like to read books too, but what's your favorite book, and share why you love it?
Yeah, I'd say probably my favorite book is just the Abraham Lincoln, the Lincoln on Leadership. And one of the main components of get out of the office and circulate with the troops. I think that's an important from Lincoln's standpoint, that he had an ambition for the bigger picture, not himself, and he wanted a great nation above himself. And I look at my role with our school district, and I don't claim to have Lincoln leadership traits, but I'm trying. That's an important part. I'd finished the Chop Wood, Carry Water. That's a book just recently that it's easy to get caught up in all the stuff, but at the end of the day, where we go is through the repeating of basic principles. Chop wood, carry water. Ours now is ensure learning. We need to make sure that our kids are learning. So I like those kind of simple books that it has a greater impact that I see. I'm a Ronald Reagan fan as well, as far as his books and just leadership and making a difference going forward. So those are, to name a few, but probably my favorite, probably Lincoln on Leadership is a book it's a pretty simple read, yep. But it's a good reminder that I've read a few times and I enjoy.
Yeah, lots of great lessons in that book. Thanks for sharing that. You've almost made it through the recharge round. I know it's tough, but this is the last question for you. One sentence or less. What legacy do you want to leave the world?
Oh my, leaving a legacy, I guess in one sentence or less would be that my goal, my strive, attempting that Larry made a difference through instilling and stirring the belief in folks that everyone can make a difference. So I hope that's something that that they might say. Again, I don't claim that that's the case, but that's something I would hope that I could do and that folks would recall or have a memory of that.
Well, you've definitely given us something to really instill and believe in ourselves, that education is really around us each and every day. And the key is really about lifelong learning. What Larry and I have talked about through this whole podcast is it doesn't matter where you're at and what stage in life. You may have young children, you may not, but education for yourself. What are you willing to pick up and learn? Pick up a good book and be able to really gain that knowledge that's there. Dr. Linthacum, I can't thank you enough for saying yes to the Charge podcast.
Thank you, Gary. I enjoyed it and appreciate what you do and the impact that you have, not only here in Missouri, but across the nation. So appreciate what you do, and I enjoyed it.
Well, Chargers, I hope you're charged up, and I hope you take away those lessons that we gave you. We didn't give you any that you have to exactly take, but you get the choice now to decide which lesson do you want to apply and really put into your life each and every day. Chargers, I thank you for showing up again today for another great podcast. I ask you, like and share it. Let others know about the podcast. That's how we keep growing each and every week, because you're letting other people know. We're in 49 states now and over 50 countries, and that's all because of you letting other people know about our podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week for another great podcast. Make it a great day.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.